Okay, so it wasn't Friday evening as we had hoped, but we have Tony Riddle and Ben Medder here to answer.
Hello.
Hello.
To answer us a few questions about lateral movement, natural running, barefoot running, related topics, and we have 10 questions here that people have sent us through the internet. As I said, this is kind of an informal Champions Everywhere production, unscripted, uncut, unplugged. So first question is from James in Dublin, and James is asking, both of you can feel free to answer, just jump in, is what your views are on weight and strengthening work, Pilates and yoga, and are they helpful in the quest?
No, I'm kidding.
Depends what the quest is.
Yeah, it depends on whether the movements you're selecting from each discipline that you could be looking at have an overall effect on the end result. Yeah? Okay, so if I put a movement in that might extend my leg out in front of me, I'm not going to choose that for running because it's not appropriate. Yeah? So if I put lifting in there, the lifting I would choose is to do, or the weight I would choose within that is to do with the distance I'm trying to strengthen the athlete. Yeah? So if it's 100 metres, I want to really load them up with loads of weight, but also make them really elastic off the ground at the same time, so they can cope with the forces in running, but also get off the ground quick enough to keep their cadence going.
And marathoners?
Marathon runners is a strength conditioning exercise. It just means they have to cope for it for longer, so it's more of an endurance thing. Yeah, just different programs you would design, but you'd be very selective in the movements that you choose that go into that discipline, which is a skill. Yeah.
And did he ask about Pilates and yoga as well?
He did.
Okay, so you're a man for what Pilates is today compared to what you believe as Pilates. Is
I developed a thing called Pilates running, which is again, but there's like 650 movements to choose from a repertoire of Pilates movements. But Contrology, there was only originally 34 positions of mat work, that is, yeah, which are more in tune with natural laws, which running is a natural movement. Right? So I only hand-picked 10 mat movements that I consider would go towards the overall posture within running. Yeah. Whereas yoga, there's different things. It might help the mental discipline or the psychological element of running, because it might help someone to understand meditation and tap into a different layer. But again, it's very different products. What we think in the West are yoga or Pilates, and they're not. Yeah. I don't. If I want, if I want to have acupuncture, I'm going to go and see, a proper Chinese practitioner of acupuncture. I'm not going to go and see a physiotherapist and have acupuncture. That's my opinion. Anyway, sorry guys.
We could probably dedicate some stage a whole topic to this, but I'll move on to the next question. It's also from James, and he's asking, why don't we see top professional athletes adopting it, and he puts in parentheses on barefoot running, natural movement, and using it in, say, Olympic competition? Or maybe they do, he's asking. Zola Budd seems to have not really been followed, which is one example of an Olympic barefoot runner, obviously, from the 80s.
Well, depends what in like an Olympic competition or just athletes in general. Or I mean, there's natural movements in there. It's just that it hasn't got the label natural movement. It's just something that's been, I suppose, revived to try and get back to what old school athletes or athletes that move well have always been doing. So you look at a shot put. To me, that's a natural movement in generating force and torque, rotation to throw something heavy. I'm not calling it natural movement.
But throwing is a natural movement pattern. Yeah. It's been conditioned in a way for the Olympic sport, right? But if I hand-picked, I could look at 10 natural movement patterns of man and say, right, throwing's one of them, I would teach the natural laws the closest I could to the natural movement pattern first as a fundamental, and then I'd coach the movement pattern in that's towards the discipline. Yeah. But the fundamentals have to be in place so they understand natural laws within movement, which are about posture, alignment, equilibrium, gravity, and all the rest of it.
But the perception here seems to be that most Western runners, or most runners going to the Olympics, they certainly don't advertise that they do natural movement training.
No, because they don't understand natural movement training, and really there aren't many natural beings on the planet left, are there, anyway? So not many people know what natural movement is, do they?
It's just a label, It's a label. Most people don't know.
But I would say most people in the West that enter competitions aren't running naturally anyway, are they? Right? Even if you're a barefoot runner, as Zola Budd, doesn't mean she's running naturally. She's just running barefoot. Doesn't mean her technique's any good, right?
Versus the Kenyans.
That might be controversial. Yeah, but Kenyans haven't been, compromised by seated posture for 80% of their day. Yeah? So their overall shape hasn't changed. Yeah?
So to answer the question, you do see it's just not labelled.
It's not labelled as a running.
Look at
most
Kenyan running,
Kenyans
or a typical Kenyan. You're going to see a barefoot running style posture-wise.
Also, their environment's more natural, right? Whereas ours isn't. Yeah. So they're more open to what is natural movement. They're just surrounded by it. Yeah.
I think we'll move to the next one is tongue-in-cheek, I believe. It's from Jeff. So he says, my girlfriend is a physio and tells me I dish when I run. She also reckons I heel strike, but I know I run like a gazelle in my Innovate Road X. But I think the true question is just, does running naturally have to look funny?
Does running naturally have to look funny?
That's the question.
I'll get confused by that one. Sorry, go on.
What's your perception of funny, I suppose? Right?
Yeah.
I don't know, you might have seen us with the floppy hands, I'm not sure.
Right, okay, because I would say that heel striking and running with a dish or sitting back in your chair is a bit of a funny running style, personally. But yeah. Essentially, that with poor technique and poor posture, you simply be landing on areas of the foot you're not designed to and increasing the risk of injury. So, I'd much prefer to be with a correct running posture and running style, funny or not, than not be able to run with an injury, I guess.
Yeah. So we have from Jason, he's asking your opinion, what is the most technically challenging sport?
Technically,
I've tried them all.
challenging sport.
In your opinion,
In my opinion,
that you've seen or experienced.
Olympic lifting would be quite there, wouldn't it, technique-wise?
yeah, because it's there's the huge forces, how it flipped, everything that happened. And most people can't do a simple squat these days, right? And they're doing a huge elastic movement. I think it's one of the fastest recorded movements is the drop within a clean and jerk. Yeah.
Went on to Olympic lifting.
Yeah, we touched Olympic lifting, didn't we?
Yeah.
In the Olympic lift, it's a huge amount of skill to have your body weight in the right place and drop that huge weight onto it and absorb the weight and remain elastic. And considering that most people have trouble just doing one squat, right? Or a correct squat, we should say, which is a motor skill milestone after all. But they're,
It's hard to say, isn't it? It's all relative.
I would say Formula One racing is pretty tough, right?
I would say swimming because it's not my forte. To me, that's technically very challenging.
Yeah.
So
As long as you
relative to
understand
the person.
that, there's a physiological and a technical, psychological element to it. Yeah, they're all tough, really, aren't they? To teach them or do them correctly, I guess.
But a complex movement, Olympic lifting would be a good example, being technically challenging.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we, I think
easier to coach in a way. Yeah. To coach into the individual. Do you know what I mean?
which
Well, if I had someone that I wanted to coach tennis to, for instance, I'm looking at a longer process. Right? If I want to teach someone Olympic lifting, I can get them to a snatch, a clean and jerk.
Less variables.
Yeah.
There's one outcome, isn't it? Lift it or you don't. Tennis, there's shots, an opponent, etc. So, I know that's answered his question.
Well, I think it gives a good starting point anyway, so we'll take, because Shane from Cork has two great questions I want to create into. So the first one is why we don't automatically run naturally. If it's natural to run in the way he prescribes, so that must be you, Tony, how come we have to learn it? Shouldn't it just come naturally to us? Presumably kids run naturally, so at what stage do we get into bad habits and why?
When you go to school and you sit down for the majority of your day in a classroom, you get locked in the hip, locked in the thoracic spine, locked in the ankle joint, all the vital areas that need to be an upright biped or a skillful one. And people do run naturally, but they run naturally in nature because they haven't been compromised by all this stuff. But, footwear, seated posture has generally led to a hybrid movement that isn't a natural movement pattern, which is running. Yeah. So what we're looking at doing, and what we do, is to coach the natural posture back into that running discipline. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the next one here refers to, I was watching Dara O'Brien comedy show the other night, and he was giving out about 3D movies. He compared 3D to tuberculosis, It comes back every 30 years. The 50s, the 80s, and again now. Barefoot free running seems to follow a similar pattern. It gets popular for a few years and then disappears. Do you think that the current hype around barefoot running will continue?
Well, it's been around for 2 million years, right? So I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of throws the whole every 30 years theory.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking in big cycles, I mean, hopefully it's going to be around for a lot longer, right?
I'm 31, so it's one cycle for me.
We're only looking at, conventional running shoes being around since the 70s, yeah? So barefoot running was doing what up until that point, yeah? I guess it had a longer standing in the market, that's what I'm trying to explain, yeah.
So we have, I think we might finish off on a question for you, Ben, which Jason actually is putting in, because he clearly knows that you want to be a dad soon. Mm-hmm. So he wants to ask you if you'll coach your kids to professional free runners when they grow up.
I wouldn't say there's such a thing as a professional free runner, but I suppose, yeah, adverts, etc. No, I would give them a lot of opportunity to move, or I should say I won't inhibit their movement as a child. I let them do their thing, give them a lot of options, a lot of, you know, advantages I suppose of being a coach in natural movement. I'll just play with them and let them do what they want to do. So yeah, free running, I'll show them some stuff. If they want to get into that and call it a label free running, it's up to them. But I won't push them into it. If they want to do it, I'll support them. There you go.
What about you, Tony? If we finish off here, do you want to...
I've already got my daughter who's 2 years and 8 months doing Olympic lifting, actually. No, I have her doing, carrying out already just simple movements that we muck around with out of the 10 natural movements, really. So I'm doing a little bit of quadrupedal movement, which all children are good at anyway at that age, because they can crawl already. Yeah, she does squats anyway, naturally. She walks, and she's starting to do what I would say will condition her for running for the future, because at that age they don't really run, they do a version of it, but their arms are floppy down by their sides, and yes, it's not quite conditioned in there, but I won't, I won't come down hard on her, yeah, but I will
pushy dads.
Yeah, I won't become a pushy dad.
Would you all wear cushion shoes?
Yeah, but she will not wear cushion shoes, there you go, yeah. Or sit down for a chair for too long without doing squats.
Would it be fair to say, Tony, that you're learning from her?
I was about to say that, yeah.
Very much so. But I'm learning almost just as much from my new child, and she's 8 months, Millie. And the motor skill milestones and things like that, so it's just amazing to unravel in front of your eyes, you know. And the more you understand it, the more you say, wow, that explains that. And she's doing like extension work up from the floor, which most of my clients I have trouble teaching to, because they're trying to figure out or over-intellectualise the movement. My daughter who's 2 years and 8 months just going, who's 8 months old, just doing that, boom, and lifting up, yeah? Which explains the whole thing about muscle action again, isn't it? She hasn't got a clue about muscles, but she's managing it, right? There
So it's fair to say that we put the brakes on our natural development by putting us in a chair, telling our kids to stop moving, well, a lot of parents, putting them in confined shoes, etc.
Yeah,
and also actually put the brakes on their development.
And also creating a fear of failure. Yeah.
Is it ironic that we're doing this interview with us in chairs?
Yeah. It is, but you know, I stand up for 80% of my day.
Right, well, unfortunately we don't have time for any more questions, and maybe we can next time the lads come over, because you have a plane to catch, so that's why we can't have it. The cameraman here will be rushing out the door in a second.
The Ireland match is on.
The Ireland match is on, yeah. So hopefully next time we'll have time for a longer, more formalised interview. We'll have a few glasses of wine and port at the table for atmosphere. But for the moment, you know, thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll enjoy this preview. So more to come. See you again.
Thanks very much.